Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to season 2 of Conversations in Pop Culture, where I have with me cosplayer Alliz. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, now I'm very excited because obviously I came across one of my favorite animes, and you cosplay Vanessa from Black Clover. But before we get to that, I do want to talk about how you got into cosplay because everybody has an interesting story on how they got into it. And I know that you're still somewhat new to all of cosplay.
Okay. So I've been cosplaying for 5 years, but I would say seriously cosplaying for 3 years. So I actually got into it because I guess back before on social media where you would see everyone doing their closet cosplays and posts, the only place I was seeing cosplays was on Reddit. And I was like, where are these events happening? And then I had a friend actually go to go to New York Comic Con, and he dressed up and post pictures. And I was like, okay, so this is where all of the cool people who wear all these sweet costumes are going. And I was like, I want to go and take pictures of them. So I planned to go. I dressed up as Nelliel from Bleach for my first cosplay ever, because I was like, if other people dress up, I'm going to do it too. And then it was it's kind of like a high cosplaying at a con. So I immediately got hooked on it. And then I went back to New York Comic Con the next year. And then I went back to New York Comic Con the next year. And then I was like, oh, there's other cons I could go to. So let me try these. And then it just became a reoccurring thing, not really on purpose, but just because I wanted to see these other cool cosplayers in costume. And then I became that reoccurring cosplayer. So that's how I got into it.
So let's talk about that first one. And Nell, obviously, Bleach. I don't know if you know or if you've looked me up, but Kalino Shaganasi, who plays her from Bleach, was on my show a while back. And so how did you even pick this cosplay to do and this character to do as your first one?
I was watching Bleach at the time, which is every cosplay. It's I just watched it. And it was the scene where she transforms into her grown full Arrancar thing. And it just she was just so cool and amazing that I was like, I have to do it. I wanted to start with something simple because I'd never really sewn, never made armor. And obviously she doesn't wear that much clothing. So I was like, this is something that seems attainable for me to make. So that was kind of my starting point with her.
Yeah, and let's talk about that entire cosplay, putting it together, the build on it, because Nell obviously has a ripped shirt. She's got the skull sort of in her hair / her mask. She has somewhat, not that much bottom-wise, and a lot of skin, green hair. And so obviously there is somewhat stuff that has to be done in creating this and building this, but it's also not as complicated as some other things you have done, like the female Titan that we're going to talk about in a little bit. So what was that entire process of really putting it together and building it out?
For her, so one of the reasons I did pick her was because she had so much ripped clothing, and I was like, I can't really sew straight edges / know how to sew very well. So if I make a mistake, it goes in favor with the vibe of the cosplay. So I really just bought a bunch of green fabric, lined it up with some of my current shirts and tried to copy the patterns of the shirt, and then do it with the fabric, which was stretchy fabric, so it was really forgiving. And then the first mask I made of hers, I did it out of paper mache, just made the shape I wanted, out of duct tape with the horns and stuff. And then I paper mache'd over it and painted it from there. And one of my friends painted the giant 3 on my back. She spent 2 hours doing it to make it perfect because she was a huge perfectionist. So yeah, that was pretty much it for that cosplay.
Yeah, I think you brought up a really good point where obviously people, when they first start out, sometimes the skill isn't there in
Mm-hmm.
building your cosplays, and you pick something that was forgiving and that you obviously were not experienced at the time of sewing. And so if this ripped or you needed to rip it a little bit more or it wasn't as clean cut, it played to that favor. And I think that's something that people forget in the entire cosplay world out there, that skills develop as you go forward in cosplay, but when you're first
Mm-hmm.
starting out, I think that that's just something that's super important that people need to understand about cosplay. And you brought up an amazing point that I think really, when people listen to this, is going to be super helpful.
Yeah. I always give people the advice to, even if they have like a character that they're totally in love with, if it's too complicated, like just start with something that is really simple, because what can really ruin cosplay for you if you're making it is like getting overwhelmed and giving up. So like that's why I'm always like, find the simplest character that you like. Don't do a group cosplay because you might get stuck with a character that you're not really too fond of or something. And just pick something simple, you like them, and go from there. And you'll eventually just like, you'll see other people wearing stuff and they'll tell you how they made it. And you kind of just like pick things up along the way.
Yeah, and I want to table this first one for a little bit, and I do want to talk a little bit about inside baseball with cosplays, because I mentioned you've done the female Titan and you've done a bunch of other anime stuff. Obviously, Vanessa from Black Clover that we're going to get to also. But I am curious, since you've done all of these cosplays and you've done some stuff on the comic side, and Aquaman, we're going to talk about that one too. Just dropping the teasers here. But where do your ideas come from, and where do your inspirations come from? Because you have done a lot of different cosplays.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm just curious about the creation process.
So when I'm picking a character, there's going to be two things I'm going to like pick it on at this point in my cosplay career. And it's going to be like, one, do I like absolutely adore and identify with the character? So like I tend to pick more like, I guess like evil-ish, not always evil, but they kind of got like a dark side to them. So like those tend to be characters I identify with. And then if it's not someone that I'm like very familiar with and I super love them, sometimes I'll see like an artwork and I'll just be like, oh my God, that's creative. I would love to put my own spin on that, bring it to life. So it has to be something that like I love like aesthetically, or it's like a character emotional attachment.
And then once you have that idea, and even if you have artwork, a lot of people use references, they use sketches, people sketch out ideas, and obviously even people take people's original artwork or what they see in DeviantArt or somewhere else, and they might sort of modify it on a sketch. Like,
Mm-hmm.
where do you go once you see it? Do you add things to the sketch, or do you just go straight to sort of mapping out what you're going to need in that entire process? Because I know a bunch of different cosplayers, and I know that you know Sapphire Nova
Mm-hmm.
somewhat well, and she was on also a while back,
Yeah.
back like 4 or 5 years ago now, early in the early days of my career here. But obviously everybody has a different way they do it, so I'm curious how you go about with references and all that stuff.
So my way, I guess, is pretty unconventional, I guess, as far as like other people who like plan out their things go. So I will usually pick a character and then I will make that character the background of my phone. So I'm like constantly thinking about it. I don't sketch because I have no talent at drawing. So basically, before I like start making something, I will literally like manifest the character in my head, and I'll be like, okay, if the sword is going to be this big, I have to think about how it's going to move, and I'll like think about it like during my workouts, like what material should it be if I want it to flow a certain way? Should it hang really heavy? Should it be light and airy? And I will literally just like think about it for months until I know like exactly what I want and how to build it. And then I'll start too late when like the con or like the photo shoot is coming. And and then I'll like motivate myself that way to like kind of grind and get it done. So
Yeah, and talk about once all that's happening. One of the biggest challenges in cosplay is getting materials, finding materials, and balancing the costs of those materials. And obviously, if you're sort of last minuting everything, that could be also a problem in many ways. But obviously, cosplay can be expensive. It doesn't necessarily have to be, but it's one of the challenges is balancing those materials and finding materials and even substituting materials around. So what is that like for you? Because that's kind of one of the biggest things out there. And especially, I've done a lot of international cosplayers, and they're right now struggling with materials and getting materials. You know, in the US, we are sort of a little bit more fortunate.
yeah.
But even still, I would imagine that COVID-19 has affected some of that. So I'm just really curious how you balance all of that stuff.
If I need expensive materials, I'll usually start ordering them like in batches, just so like I'm not breaking the bank all in like the matter of 1 week. When I did my Mosquito Girl cosplay, I made it out of a whole bunch of latex, which was really expensive, and I bought that like 6 months before I actually started making it. So like if I anticipate things are going to be expensive, I'll usually just like start like stocking up on the supplies, and then I'll like build all at once I have everything. It hasn't been too hard to source things. Even like Michael's and Joann's have been pretty well stocked with like EVA foam and like the different types of fabrics and such. So I haven't really, I guess there hasn't been too much out of stock that I couldn't, switch to something else for. So.
Yeah, and let's just dive into some cosplays now, because I think that sort of is one of the biggest things out there that a lot of cosplayers struggle with. But I really want to talk about your cosplays, and I love a bunch of them. And I definitely want to start with the anime side, because that's my background is as an anime fan. I'm a big anime fan, and one of my favorite shows ever all time is Attack on Titan. And you did the female Titan, which is Annie. For those who don't know, Attack on Titan. And you did this at New York Comic Con. Obviously, I think this was 2016. Attack on Titan sort of just dropped. It was the hottest anime show in the last 16 years at the time. And so what inspired this, and what was this like? And obviously you didn't have shoes, which is really cool. And it's almost like a full bodysuit in many ways.
Yeah.
And so it's just an awesome cosplay. So what's the story behind this one?
So as I mentioned, I do pick characters that I kind of identify with. And for the people that are watching through a screen, I'm actually extremely tall. I'm 6'1", and Annie, just like being a Titan, I was like, I have to be a Titan, kind of thing. And I was counting on finding some like Aaron Titans, at the con. So that's why I thought that I would do Annie. But the way I made her, I actually just bought one of those muscle bodysuits that you can like get off Amazon. And I painted her like design over it, like on top of it, so that like the muscle pattern showed through, but I still had like her like unique texture and sorts. And then I did actually wear shoes. I just wore really small flip-flops with like really thin straps, and then just painted over everything. So it looked like I wasn't wearing shoes.
So what was that like, though? Because obviously Attack on Titan just dropped. And that first season of Attack on Titan, for those who don't know, I'm a big anime fan, really changed anime at the time. And so obviously I get that New York Comic Con is, a mixture of everything, but even still, like, what was that entire experience like, witnessing all of that? Because obviously it's Attack on Titan, and still Attack on Titan is in its final season as well right now. So
yeah, I have like my own experience with the Attack on Titan show, where I was like, I don't know, I feel like when I watched it, we were told like we were recommended the anime without being given like any context to it. So obviously we had that like first episode, like, oh my God experience. But at the con wearing Annie, it was so cool because everyone was super hype about it. And there was even like Attack on Titan cosplayers with like the brown vest and like the scout troop robe. So like every time I would like find a group of them, they would all kind of like clutter to me, and we would do like, I would do like a scary Titan pose, and then they would all do like the fist to the heart. And it was just like, it was just fun because that was also when I was really new into cosplaying, like kind of just learning it casually. And it was like, you like find other people that are into the same fandoms of you as you, and it's just like a crazy like mesh experience where everyone's like super excited about the same thing, and you realize there's other people that love the same things you like. So I don't know, it was just like a big high, as I mentioned before.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things also that really helped you, as well as from what I just heard, is that you had a really good experience your first outings out. Meaning your first 2-3 outings out, it seemed that you had a very positive experience, which further perpetuated. And I think that's what cosplay is supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some people don't have that, and it's very discouraging. And so what is that like for you, knowing, because I think that helped you tremendously, that you founded groups and people were very receptive to you, especially when you were brand new, because that's sort of like positive reinforcement, which I think, you know, not to get too controversial, but I think in 2018 and 2019, that was lacking in the cosplay community, and I think it's now starting to come back.
I'd say it's slowly coming back, and I can kind of see it, especially with like the My Hero fandoms, because there's so many people that are all kind of like jumping on the same fandoms, and I think they're not getting like that same like experience where they go to a con and they see like 10 other people wearing the same costume that they are. So maybe it makes it feel like less special to them. So I know there's like a huge influence like in the cosplay, like saying, you know, it's okay if one of your friends is wearing the same costume as you, like you can still have fun. But I think there are more people interested, and there are like more core popular fandoms where like you can't just show up to a con and be like the only person in that cosplay anymore. So I don't know. I personally, I think it's like, what was that?
Unless you're unique and special and you go old school. Go old school, like I go old school.
Which is a strategy in its own, is just to do cosplays that no one knows.
I went old school Gundam, looked like Amuro Ray, pulled it off.
Yes.
Awesome. I ran into an MS pilot also who was fighting somewhere in Southeast Asia. It was the best thing ever, but I digress.
Yes.
So, but to go off of that point, I do think it is becoming more positive. I think COVID-19 has really forced that, because for a while, I feel like it was a bit toxic of that lack of positivity, which is what cosplay was supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And then also you mentioned earlier before that talking about swords, and so we might as well talk about swords.
Okay.
With Ladybug Shaman from Noragami. And well, I think this is one of your favorite cosplays that you've done. And so let's talk about the elephant in the room, and she's got a big sword. And then you can take that to however you want to take that. It's completely, I know exactly how it sounded coming out of my mouth. But obviously I want to talk about that because I think that's the most profound feature. And again, purposely picking my words. But that, in all seriousness though, like obviously it's a big prop. And so what's the story behind how that was built and making it durable, making it safe for you to carry, also making it look the way it's supposed to look, as well as also being con approved, because I think people forget that some cons have rules about props, what can be brought, what can't be brought, how realistic can something look. You know, people who have fake guns with cosplays, and I know a few people, legitimately the gun looks real. And it's terrifying. And so, and obviously things have happened at cons that have changed the game. So how do you navigate all of that and build props and make sure that you could carry it? Because it does make the cosplay in many ways.
Yeah. I'd say the way I approach props now is a little different than I approached it when I first started. Now I tend to think more about like transportability. So I'm like thinking about breaking it down in pieces. The Bishomon Sword was not one of those portable props. It's literally like a giant aluminum pole, because I hadn't discovered PVC at the time. And it's sandwiched between two pieces of insulation foam. And then just kind of like shaved down into the shape. I use like spray paint friendly, like foam friendly spray paint to like paint it. And then like I just kind of did like the designs around it, like the hilt wrapping myself. And then my dad actually built like the knob on the end out of wood. So he was actually helping me with my cosplays when I first started. And he was very supportive with that, but like kind of felt like I was like leaning on my dad too much to make the props. So I eventually have started making everything myself. But that was one of the OGs. And she's probably one of my top 5 favorite female characters ever. So I just love her.
So to talk about the sword and even the idea of transportability, I guess is the word. I don't know if that's a word, but I think the concept is there.
Yeah.
But even to go further off of that, because I've noticed the trend in cosplay, and I don't know if this totally applies to you, but I've noticed it with other people, where we've now gone from like people having like big armored builds and having awesome cosplays, but they're not wearable.
Yeah.
And now going into this wearable world where it's not 100% perfect, but it's comfortable. People can actually sit at lunch and eat their food when they're at a con. And I think that's a big shift. And I think it sort of speaks about how you approach props now, where they're broken down a little bit. So what do you feel that shift is, and why it took place and why it's happening? And even for you on a personal level, I think obviously it's transportability, and also it probably makes the con experience better and more breathable. I'm curious why you think that shift happened, because that's sort of new in the cosplay.
I actually went to C2E2 a couple years ago, which I had to fly to. And when I was trying to think about what to bring, I was like, my props are too oversized to bring on an airplane. And if I check it, it's going to be like a crazy fee. So I kind of like, I got burned for it, to be honest. Like I can't really go to any con with a giant prop that isn't local. So that's why I started thinking about like, I need to make sure that I can break these down, pack them, bring them, whatever. I don't really tend to complain much about wearing really uncomfortable large costumes at cons. If I want to sit down, I'll literally just take it off and, sit and breathe for a little bit. I probably torture myself a little bit too much. But the props, like you can't even go to travel to a con if you can't break it down. If you want to fly, even if you want to drive, it takes up the entire car if it doesn't break down. So that's kind of like where the necessity came from.
Yeah, and also, do you feel that cons now, because I know that there's been issues at cons, there's been issues in certain convention centers where they don't allow certain things, where I've heard people saying that your prop can't be taller than you. Obviously, you have a height advantage, but even still, like, certain props are huge.
Yep.
And we'll talk about Fairy Tale in a second. I think you're going to get it across, and you already know where the mind's going, and you're going to have to explain it to everybody, but that's also a big sort of prop as well. So is that also into consideration, that certain cons just are not going to be happy with you when you have certain things?
I guess it kind of depends on what the prop is. Like in my experience, when I'm showing up to security, if they can see like I've put a lot of effort and craft into it and it's like, a dull piece of foam prop, usually they're going to let me in. I've really only had one instance where someone was like, your prop's too tall and it can't be in our con. And I was like, I'm as tall as this prop. Like, you have to, like, tell me I can't come in this con then. But I think it depends what it is. I think in my case, I've mostly carried around swords. So like I have all these dull foam swords, which they could care less about. But if it looks like, a gun, for instance, I can see why they would be concerned. So I think it kind of depends on what it is.
And we might as well jump right into this one, because this one's probably, I think, the biggest prop you have. But it's sort of not a prop, I guess. And it's Martian's Satan's Soul, big black wings from Fairy Tale. And I don't know if it's a prop, because it's weird. And you're going to have to...
wearable.
You're going to have to explain what it is, because it's really hard to describe. But, yeah. So you could explain it a little bit so everybody gets an idea.
So on the Satan's Soul, it's a giant pair of wings that I essentially wear like a backpack. It breaks a lot of con rules. Like, the entire skeleton of the wings is steel and aluminum, and they're like, only foam props allowed. So
it's pretty big. It's pretty extensive. I mean, yeah. It's complicated, and obviously it's not the easiest thing to probably build either. Mm-hmm. And then how far does it go out? Because like, I'm trying to give people an idea here of why I'm bringing this up, because it's obviously bigger than a sword. So fully expanded, the wings stretch out about 12 feet wide, and they are about 10 feet tall. So I wanted them to be that big so bad because I'm 6 foot, and I wanted them to, like, be comparable to me as they are to the character. But at the same time, I was like, I can't be walking around a con with 12 feet wide wings. So I did make them articulate, so they do close. And when they are closed, they're about 7 or 8 feet tall, so I can get through doorways. I can manage to not hit people. And I do have like the entire skeleton like cushioned in foam, so that way, like, if they do want to come up and check to see if they're dangerous, they can at least like touch all the edges and make sure that they're soft and I'm not going to accidentally impale someone. But yeah, those are pretty extensive wings. So the question I have is, how is this built? Because obviously there's a lot of stuff going on. They retract, they open, they close. The closest thing I've built to that is I built Lego Buzz Lightyear wings, motorized, and that's not easy with gears and stuff. So obviously this is clearly a massive step up. And I wouldn't even know where to even begin to conceptualize the idea for this as well.
So I didn't conceptualize it by myself. I used some friends to help. But basically it is 2 4-foot aluminum box pipes. And then I have another piece of aluminum pipe on it, and it's on like a pin so it can like rotate around it. And then so like when it's open, I have it attached to a string and bungee cords to make it easier. And I literally just pull the strings and it opens right up. The biggest issue I faced, which is I don't want to hold the wings open the entire time, especially because they're so big, and with all the fabric on it, they're so heavy. So the bungees helped me get it open. And then I used cam cleats, which are actually a device that you use to, like, I guess, dock your boat. So it's like, it like keeps the rope like, safely around the dock, but it won't like slide out the other way. So it like locks the rope in place. So they just stay open, which is like the best. So they're not motorized, but they do stay open by themselves, even though they're a pulley system.
So what do cons think when you go out with this one and you're at a convention, and obviously because it's big, and to some degree they have to respect what you've done, but at the same time they're like, why? And they're like, God damn it. Like,
New York Comic Con loved it, and I think even their social media loved it because they put me on one of their videos to advertise for their con. So they have to approve for it. Smaller cons, kind of like Anime Next, they were very concerned about it. And they kind of pulled me behind the scenes, and they were like, please do not like walk with the wings open. Like, just like, if you're going to open them, just make sure you stay in one place so that you don't like actually hit people. And I was like, fair.
I'm pretty sure I know who pulled you aside. I'm pretty sure who pulled you aside from Anime Next. I have an idea. It's like one of 3 people.
Yeah. Yeah, they were nice, and I think they really liked the prop, and it went against their rules, but they were like, just like, as long as you like are smart about it, we're not going to ask you to leave, you know, if you're not hurting people. So,
but I would imagine it's also a badge of honor in both of those cases, because whenever I get in trouble for breaking the rules at a convention or doing something or doing something, and everybody's like, keep going, you know, I view it as a badge of honor. And I'm on a different side at conventions. I'm on the panel side, and I've overstepped people's boundaries, and people have keep going. And I take it as a badge of honor when that happens. So for you, it must also be something like that as well, because obviously you're going in the right direction, and that even though you're breaking rules, you're getting away with it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm breaking rules, but I also like want to be respectful, because I mean, they could have just told me to leave, and they didn't, you know. So like, I want to be respectful to them back, and like acknowledge I don't know how to say it. Like,
you're being political right now. It's what you're doing.
Well, I mean, that is kind of true how I do approach it. Like, I'm not trying to go into like New York Comic-Con or like Anime Next and make enemies. You know what I mean? Because I kind of like, I knew the rules going in, and I kind of just hoped it would work out. So.
Oh, there's so many things I could say to that. There's so many things I could say to that, because I am the exact opposite, and I know that I am. And I tend to make enemies, and then I appeal the rules. But that's a whole different ballgame. And so obviously this is a very fun cosplay, and I think that it shows what you can do with cosplays, and I haven't seen anything like it. Where I've seen wings and I've seen variations of wings, but nothing that really captures it this way. And obviously you play really well with your height with that. And so I want to change the entire venue of the animes we're talking about. I love Fairy Tail. I'm in the middle of Fairy Tail, and I really enjoyed this one because I enjoy Fairy Tail and everything that Fairy Tail pushes. But I do want to talk about another anime that I also love, and that's Kill la Kill.
Okay.
And I like this one for a variety of reasons also, and that's Satsuki. And what I like about this one, and I think that people don't recognize this when they're looking at your Instagram, that the detail that's actually in her uniform, because you have a bunch of like cuffs and things, and then you also have the patches, and all the eyes are popping and everything, and then the boots also. And I think there's just all these little tiny details in this cosplay that I think are overlooked.
Right.
And so I absolutely love it, and I think that looking at it from a distance, you see exactly what it is, and it's amazing. But then when you get closer, and there's all these great photos on Instagram that really capture some of these details. So what was that like, really getting that stark appearance from a distance, but then also getting all those little details inside of it? Because obviously Satsuki is a very prevalent character, and also this in many ways is sort of a new era of anime character as well. And it's very important on this idea of anime, and as sort of an anime historian, Studio Trigger has changed the game tremendously. So what is that like? Because it is relevant and significant, and it's also sort of a shift in anime, you know, cosplays to some degree as well. No pressure, no pressure.
No. So first I want to say, while I did pick out a lot of like the applique and the details to that Satsuki cosplay, someone else sewed it for me. Because my sewing skills were just not up to that level. But so I kind of like dictated what I wanted and like the patterns, and like I did physically go to like a lot of the stores that sell applique and pick out what I wanted to go on it, but I didn't do it.
Who sewed it?
The person who sewed it, I don't know if she wants me to give her name because she is a local swim mom in the area, and
so it's not Sapphire Nova, because we can mention.
No, I used to coach her kids, and she was a great seamstress, and so I kind of had like pitched the idea to her, and I paid her.
You don't have to mention her name. It's all good.
Yeah.
So to talk about that though, obviously this is sort of a weird one where it's not that you custom pushed it out and I guess, gave somebody directions on what you wanted. It's not necessarily a custom cosplay because you got a bunch of the materials and you sort of were heavily involved in the design process, but still somebody sewed it. And so it's sort of half and half. So that's an interesting thing where in the cosplay community, there are prefabricated cosplays or custom built cosplays, custom tailored cosplays. When I did mine a while back, like 4 years ago, I had it custom made for me. I am not good at that. And so I took my measurements and all that stuff. And that's a whole different craft than building it yourself. So this is sort of, I guess, in that realm. So what was that process like? Because it's very different than when you're doing everything yourself and putting it together and putting all the pieces together as well.
To be honest, I have somewhat of an ego where if I don't make the majority of the cosplay, I like sort of guilt myself about it, which is why I haven't worn that cosplay that often. And it's something like, it's not something I would want to push on anyone else because I think commissioning cosplays, it shouldn't make you any less of a cosplayer. You know what I mean?
Well, thank you. I'll take that as a compliment. I mean, my ego is all good now.
Well, I know that for people that build and for people that commission, sometimes there is kind of like butting heads and like.
Yeah. There is. It's not sometimes there is a division, and it shouldn't be. I don't really get why there is. I just think that some people just want to fight, and that's what I think it is. And I think that there's nothing wrong with people wanting to just have something built for them. There's a great saying. I was watching a video where genius is complicated. There are geniuses who create a bunch of stuff, and then there are people in society who are geniuses who can see what you do and then say, I could do it better, and then they do it better. So they can take a basic concept and elevate it. And I've done both of those things in a lot of different ways. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah.
And so that's how I view custom cosplays and people building you a cosplay versus somebody creating it, because everybody has different skills. And the whole point of cosplay is to dress up and have fun with it. And also, some people are just really good at modeling cosplays. They just they have a natural ability to do it, and they just can't build it. And so it's a whole different subsection. Sorry to cut you off.
No, it's okay. But yeah, I don't know where I was really going with it. I mean, I really like that cosplay, and I felt like I got everything I wanted out of it exactly, how I asked. And, there still is part of commissioning a cosplay where, you're talking to the person who's making it for you, and you're giving them your idea of how you want it. And you're kind of like, you're still dictating a lot of it. So it's still kind of like your baby, so to say. It's just someone else did the execution.
I agree. And now we're going to flip the script because I know you made this one, I think 100%. And I'm contractually obligated. Now, I'm not really, guys, but Hisoka from Hunter x Hunter.
Yes.
And, I don't know. Again, he's played, I believe, by Keith Silverstein, I would like to say. And so Keith was on my podcast also. We're just going through the list here. We're just going through the list. So what was this one like? Because I know that this one was made by you 100%. And so obviously, what was that like? And was it your first complete 100% done yourself cosplay? Or
I'm trying. Mira Jane was 100%. I'm trying to think. Bishomon was 100%. I honestly don't have that many that are not 100%, to be honest. There's a few, like there's a few closet cosplays, and then there's the Satsuki cosplay, which is probably the one that looks the most involved that I didn't do. But the Hisoka was 100%. That was the first time I cosplayed a male character, because up until that point I was like cosplaying the coolest female characters at that time, and I got to a point where I was like, I'm done with never being like the coolest character in the show. So like that's when I was like, I don't care what anyone thinks. I'm making Hisoka. I'm doing the wig. It's gonna look a little weird, but I don't care. And it was just like, I don't know. It was just like a full embodiment. I love it. I love that cosplay, and it's probably one of the oldest cosplays I've made that I still continue to rewear now.
So let's talk about that concept for a second, because obviously there's retirement of cosplays, and again, I'm going to use myself as an example. So I'm a panelist, and I retire some panels at a certain point, and there are panels that I keep around forever. Mm-hmm. And obviously cosplay is probably the same thing, and there's a bunch more factors I would imagine, such as what's popular, what's not popular. You know, things can be overworn. You know, there could be too many of a particular character. And so how do you determine when it's time to say, hey, this cosplay has served you well, but it's time to put it to rest for a little bit, or that I'm just not interested in this cosplay anymore? And then how do you say, hey, I love this cosplay and I really care that it's not been popular for 5 years. I want to wear it at a con.
It's purely based on my emotional attachment to the cosplay.
It's about you, essentially.
That, but also if the costume starts to break down. Like, for example, my Mira Jane is like a crowd favorite, but that thing stinks. And I cannot like bring that out in public anymore. Like, it's just done. It has to be remade if I like bring her back. So it depends on how well the cosplay itself holds up, and then how much I, love the character.
Yeah, and then there's one more before we talk about Vanessa, because that's the whole reason why we're talking, that and all. There's only 2 reasons why we're talking. That's just the fact, everybody. Mm-hmm. So obviously I want to really talk about this one quickly, because it's Colleen Oshaganasi once again, and it's your Boruto Sarada Hokage version. And now I've watched about half of Boruto, and I don't think she becomes Hokage yet, if at all. And
yeah, we don't know.
Yeah, we don't know just yet, and I'm not reading that. I read like the first 3 manga books, and then I just dropped off, and I'm so far behind. So I'm not the expert on this topic, but obviously this is a fun mashup. It's kind of a fun thing to throw out there, and it's just a fun one to have. So what was that entire thing going on with that one? And just throwing that idea, because obviously it was met very positively.
Yes. So it kind of happened very randomly, and it was one of those cosplays that I decided the week before I wore it that I was going to make it, which is, I don't know, that's how all my most popular cosplays are.
Responsible. Yeah. Very responsible.
Yes. But I saw some fan art on Reddit of people drawing Sarada as the Hokage, and I sort of
wrong, but
what was that?
They were wrong, but it's okay.
No, they're not wrong yet. But yeah, I saw some fan art, and I kind of like was looking at all the concepts, and I was like, this is something that I could probably pull together really easy for this weekend at the con. And I sort of and I was watching Boruto at the time. I was really into it before it sort of started to fall off. And I was just like, this is perfect because I'm really into this. I really like Sarada as a character. I do think she's going to be the Hokage, despite all the hate that people say about it. So I don't know, I just did it.
And so one of the things that I think that resonated with people is that obviously people like her as a character, people like her parents, obviously people like Boruto. There's a lot of hype with Boruto. And also, this doesn't seem like that complicated of a cosplay to make as well. It doesn't seem like some of your other things that you've done. And what is that like? Because there are easy cosplays to put together, and then there are more difficult ones. And I think it's really important that cosplayers, and I'm not a cosplayer by nature, I've done it like twice.
Yeah.
But I would imagine that it's like interviewing, where there's easy interviews to do and hard interviews to do. And it's nice to have a mixture of both of them. And so this seems like almost like a break, saying, oh man, I can just throw this together. And there's a lot of positive response, but it's not going to kill me. And I also would imagine it wasn't that expensive to put together either.
Yeah, it was extremely easy to make. And I'm wearing leggings in it. I didn't have to sew leggings. There was a lot of stuff I could source for that cosplay. Really, it's
also comfortable, probably.
It's comfortable. And I actually have kind of like a formula for like large cons where I will wear one big cosplay on like Saturday, and then I'll do like a medium cosplay on Friday, and then Sunday is always my like comfortable, like easy cosplay. And that's kind of like when I was getting ready for KatsuCon, I guess last year, I needed an easy cosplay, and that she sort of just like came up, and I was like, this is perfect. I can make this really quick. It's a really cool design. It's comfortable. So like, this is what I'm going to do.
And then let's talk about Vanessa, because I like this cosplay for a lot of reasons. And I'm going to list all of them. I love Black Clover. I think Black Clover is brilliant. I don't get why people shit on it. I think that people have to understand it's an easy show to watch that's complicated, and it's just as complicated as you want to make it. Where you legitimately cannot make it complicated, or you can make it super complicated.
Yeah.
And I like her. I think the witch arc is brilliant. I really like that arc, and I think it was well done as far as character development. I also like the fact that she pretty much walks around in her underwear.
Mm-hmm.
And that she's pretty much a deadly witch, and that happens. And, well, let's talk about your cosplay, because more or less that's where we're at. So, yeah. And I got no complaints. So how did this even come about?
So there's actually a funny story behind this one. Similar to how I said I needed like an easy cosplay to wear, Vanessa became that easy cosplay that I can make within a week, because it's literally only a bra and underwear and then like her like robe. You know what I mean? So I was like really fast, really easy. And the reason I picked her is because one of my best friends, she cosplays Kana from Fairy Tail, which, similar to Vanessa, is a very heavy drinking, like comedic character. And we were like, these characters are basically the same person. They're super powerful. They drink in like no clothing, and they're really funny. And like, we should go to an anime con together, and we'll both like be dressed up carrying like bottles, and like she would have like a giant barrel. It would be like us walking around as like the same person, but from different animes. And when I debuted Vanessa, my friend Shauna got sick that day. So I went to the con by myself in the Vanessa outfit, and I started at New York Comic Con. They had like that anime fest area, which was like separate from New York Comic Con. But when I went there, I didn't like find anyone that I knew, and I started to feel a little uncomfortable. So I actually like Ubered, up to New York Comic Con in the Javits Center, where I like found more people that I knew, and I like blew up Vanessa there, of course, because like I was a girl that walked in a bikini. But it wasn't really intended to like be like that, but that's just how it happened.
So what is that like? Because obviously, I mean, it's cosplay, it's fun, but it is to some degree just that. And so what is that like in really finding that happy medium? Because obviously you have this stuff where she's got her black bowl robe on, obviously the hat, the bottle, sends it all, but at the same time, it's like you're a girl in a bikini at an anime con.
Yeah.
And so like I guess what I'm asking is that where are the lines? Because this is something that I'm not complaining about. I think it's great, and I'm just pissed off that I didn't see it, but that's just me.
So the lines for me is like, I am perfectly fine with, I'm obviously there in cosplay, perfectly fine with people looking, whatever, you look very nice, you look really great, you have a great body. Even those comments, I'm like, all right, as long as people, you know, don't come up and touch me or like come up and violate my privacy. And I get a lot of comments that, well, you should have known to expect that behavior when you wore that outfit. And I'm like, whether I expect the behavior or not, it doesn't make it right. So I'm still going to approach the con and hope that even if I'm wearing a bikini, people will, you know, treat me respectfully as a human being, because after all, I am still embodying a character, no matter how much or how little clothing they have.
And even to go further off of that, because obviously different cons have different rules. Obviously, New York Comic Con is in October. October can be cold. So how does that all factor in too? Because this seems, and I forget the con, might even be up in Ohio. And I could say that you're originally from Ohio, but like it's like a water theme con.
Mm-hmm.
And so like this seems perfect for that in many ways also, which is in the summertime, which I would imagine is a hell of a lot more comfortable because October can be cold in New York. I grew up 23 years in New York. I know exactly how cold it can get in October. So like how do you balance all of that out? Because obviously, and I'm about to say something extremely profound, the less clothes you have on, the colder you're going to get.
Yeah.
I know it's breaking news, guys.
I just plan on suffering. I was lucky that day because it was bizarrely hot. And there's actually pictures of me sweating outside in the Vanessa cosplay. So, you know, I really lucked out there. But yeah, you've seen on like my Instagram, I recently went into the frozen over water for my drowned cosplay just so I could get like an icy water scene. And I don't care. Don't care about what temperature it is.
And then to even go further with this, Vanessa, and we're going to get to that one too, you have a lot of great photos. And I think that there's the photos at the con that are fun. But the reason why I say this caught my eye is because you have a lot of photos and photo shoots. Obviously, her drinking the bottle and her in a variety of different poses, obviously in the cage, and that thing was good. So I think that in many ways further expands the character and really captures what this cosplay is. And obviously, you can do things at a con that you can't do in a photo shoot, just by nature, because there's different rules and situations.
Yes.
I think is a good way to put it. And things happen in the moment. So what was it like really? Because I think that's what really expanded this cosplay character for you, is not necessarily the stuff at the con, but those photo shoots.
Well, the photo shoots, I happen to have a photographer that, you know, did most of those, and he's just like, so like in the moment, let's do something fun. Let's go over here. Let's explore. Wouldn't it be funny if you did this? And that's kind of the photo shoot style that I like work really well with, where it's like spur of the moment. Wouldn't this be cool? And for every single cool photo I have on Instagram, I have about 200 horrible ones.
That's how it's supposed to be. It's 80-20, right? 80-20.
Yes.
So it's supposed to be.
Yeah, but I just looked for a really unique place where I could shoot her and kind of get all of those different unique shots. So I really love her as a character, and I love wearing her, and I feel really, really pretty in her, which is always a great plus. But yeah, I don't know. I just like embodying her because I think she's cool. Like, she's like the drunk in the anime, but she's also like the girl with like, you can like relate to her a lot because she doesn't have one single trope where it's like she's the character that loves food or she's like you know what I mean? Like, she's a really like deep character, and I can do so many things with her. I can make her look really excited and like want to drink, or I can actually make her, you know, like kind of sad and she's trapped behind these like bars. So there's like a lot I can do with her.
It also helps that her witch arc really expanded her character, because the first 50 episodes with her weren't that great in Black Clover. And then really there was a lot of development that happened with her that really expanded it. And Black Clover is one of those shows that I feel that you got to get like 30 episodes in before it starts getting good. I loved it from the very start because I knew it was something special. But I've been watching anime for like 25 years at this point. In fact, anime's in my blood. I just inject it in daily. But I digress with that too. And I think that really, and I agree that you look amazing in it, and I think you really embrace the character, and you can tell that when through those photos and those con stuff, and obviously it's just a fun cosplay because that's what I legitimately I just typed in Black Clover on Instagram and it came up. So it's like one of the first 5 that come up. It's crazy.
Oh,
it's very popular.
Well, that's exciting.
So now I want to switch gears, and I'm going to skip a bunch of the comic stuff, but I do want to talk about that Aquaman, because I think that's your other quote-unquote signature cosplay.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a few versions of Aquaman, Aquawoman. I don't know what exactly it's classified as, but the first one is definitely the black, almost full body suit Aquaman, a little bit of armor's in there. More sea-like, less like the movie, and more, I guess, militant Aquaman, if we will. And original Trident. We'll throw that one in there, too. So what drew you to Aquaman and building that first one? And you could explain the details, because I'm missing a lot of stuff here.
Sure. So Aquaman was another one of my half-brain cosplays that just popped off. And I really am more of like an anime fan like yourself. But I had like this event at work where they were doing superheroes and comics. And I was like, no one's going to know who anime characters are. So I have to pick like a comic character. And I've been a swimmer my entire life. Like, like literally like from like the time I could walk, and I swam in college, I swim master swimming. So I was like, I'm going to pick the superhero that swims because I relate to them on that level. And that's why I did Aquaman. So I wore that first version with like the shirt and the leggings and the original Trident to Comic-Con one year. And it was way more popular than I thought it was going to be. And then I was like, all right, well, I have to upgrade it now that the movie's coming out. So that's when I did the version with the tattoos, because at that time when I first debuted it, all we had known about the Aquaman movie was we saw the poster of Jason Momoa wearing the black pants and the tattoos, and there was nothing else. We didn't know anything else what he would look like. So then I did the tattoos. And I recently, last October, made a third version, which I don't think exists in any comics, but I did the Dark Aquaman, where I changed all of my armor to black. I made the Trident completely black. So it's really just like a darker, more evil feel to it. And it's really what was that?
It's got like a dark mantis feel to it.
Yeah, kind of. So
yeah, I know my Aquaman history. In fact, I might be an expert in Aquaman history. So his new 52 shit was good.
Yes.
It was good. It was good. And his Brightest Day stuff was good too.
Mm-hmm.
But let's talk about the tattooed version, because obviously you got that Trident, those tattoos. What was it like even putting on those tattoos and getting that stuff? Because obviously it's by the waist and it's like the entire arms for the most part, and even building that out. And obviously gold top, to be very much in more of like the comic version. He's got a full suit on, but still movie-like and all that stuff. So, because obviously when you're going the movie route with comics, it's a little bit different than when you're going the, I guess, regular comics or anime route.
Right. Well, Aquaman, I'd say he's not really... My tattooed Aquaman isn't really true to either side. It's kind of meets in the middle. Aquaman doesn't wear black pants, but all of my cosplays of him have black pants. So
not yet he doesn't. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, not yet. Not in any movie form. And he doesn't wear it with like the gold half top armor. So really, it's kind of like I guess it's kind of an original cosplay, to be honest. but it's still like recognizable enough where people know who it is exactly when they see it.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, is that obviously, you can't just go shirtless. I mean, I'm just stating the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
So clearly you're at a disadvantage on that front. But the fact that it is the gold top with that sort of movie/comic hybrid, and the tattoos, it obviously is recognizable, and I think people get it.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the thing. And I think that's also a new trend where I think it used to be you need to be 100% perfect in cosplay, and I think now you need to be not 100% perfect, but recognizable, or in the likeness of that character, to be considered that character. And I think it's a big shift as well. I think that's happened in the last 3 years, where it's also the mashup arc stuff has happened, and things in that nature has also helped to get to us in the cosplay community to likeness versus perfection. And there's nothing wrong with being perfect and having a completely traditional mirrored version.
Yeah.
I also think it's this idea that people in the cosplay community want to expand outward. And I think it's a good thing. I really do.
I do as well. I say when I started cosplaying, I was very much, I have to look exactly like them. And now whenever I'm looking at a character, sometimes I'm like, what can I change? Like I'm like looking.
What do you have? It's like the question, in which that what I need to. The saying is that I don't need to be perfect. I just need to be good enough.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds weird, and it's probably not great advice, and it sounds like we don't care. But it's just the opposite, where it's just I need to be good enough, and I could take certain liberties of creative licensing.
Right. And honestly, I think it makes it more fun and more personable to you. If you do take liberties and you kind of change it in your own creative direction, if you show up and there is another Aquaman there, you don't have like that awkward, like, ooh, we're the same characters. So you like feel a little uncomfortable. Like sometimes you can like go up to them and be like, oh, I love how you did this. And this is really cool. I love this spin you did on it. And it just makes it a little bit more of a friendlier environment.
Yeah, I agree. And then the other thing I want to talk about is those Tridents, because there's a few of them. So what's the story behind the Trident? Because I think the Trident's the best part.
Let's see. I have
not the gum.
Yeah. I have 4 Trident tops now. Not the first one. The first one is retired because Jason Momoa signed it. And I was like, I can't have this be destroyed, so I need a new one. So then I brought out a new one that I started, carrying around. It was exactly the same, except I added like some netting on it. And then I made my dark Aquaman cosplay. And then I was like, well, I don't want to paint over the old one, so I'll just make another one. So then I have 3 Trident tops, and I have 2 silver ones, 1 signed, and then I have the black one. And then I recently did the Drowned from the Dark Knight Metal series, and she steals her Earth's Aquawoman's Trident, and then it's kind of like, it's a little different. So now I have 4 Tridents.
Let's talk about the Drowned Aquaman from Dark Knight Metal stuff, because obviously that's a different version. It's Dark Knight Metal. It's complicated with everything that's going on, because I don't even know what Dark Knight Metal falls under. I don't know if it's DC Black Label or if it's not. And obviously, it's sort of kicking off the end of one era of DC and leads into future state anyhow. So what was that like, though? Because it is Batman-esque, Aquaman-esque, and stuff like that. So clearly, it's a very interesting cosplay.
Yeah.
To say the least. And I actually know very little about this character, because Dark Knight Metal lost me a while ago.
Which is completely fair. And being an anime fan primarily, I probably would have never been put onto this character. But because I wore Aquaman so frequently, I had a lot of fans coming up to me and talking about like, all the different versions of Aquaman, and I actually had Drowned recommended to me like quite a few times. So believe it or not, this cosplay has been sitting in my brain since like 2016. I have been thinking about it for that long and sort of been like stalking the character. I don't know what to say other than that. It is.
I don't know much about metal. Metal lost me a long time ago. It's just so confusing, and I love Scott's work. And I think Scott is a great writer. I think Greg is a great artist. I have certain versions of it. I have the first basic set, but beyond that, it's just like I read the first 6, but beyond that, and then like the sequel, and then like punk rock metal, and I'm just like,
well, not only that is that all of the Dark Knights are one shots, so they're not even like continued characters into the like the DC like comics that you see now. So a lot of people don't know much about them, and they don't come up very often just because they were there for such like, you know, a single issue or a short period of time.
Yeah, I love the cosplay. I just don't know much about the character, and I'm the first person to admit what I don't know, and that's where I stand. But I think it's great. It reminds me very much of like Van Helsing and all that stuff, and it's got some really cool stuff. And there's Zenescope Van Helsing, I'll add.
Yeah, if you can't tell, I'm drawn to the water cosplays as well. I think all of my comic characters I've only done them because I have like a water element mixed in with them, and then if it's not comics, it's all anime.
or American animation with Korra.
Yeah.
Or Katara, or one of the water benders.
Right.
But again, I digress on that one. And so now I think we just talked about boatload of your cosplays, and I am curious, and I do want to change topics a little bit, because obviously COVID-19 wrecked, and I mean wrecked 2020. From March to December, every con was canceled. New York Comic Con was canceled. San Diego was canceled. Emerald City Comic Con, and everything in between was canceled. In-store events were canceled. Comic books were delayed, essentially. And so I am curious how you were affected all throughout 2020 for the last 9 months of it. As far as cosplay goes.
Yeah, I mean, with all of the cons canceled, I kind of lost all motivation for the first 9 months of the year. And it was like, I have nothing upcoming, so I'm not motivated to start things. You know, I wasn't like trying to drop a whole bunch of money on supplies if I was never going to be wearing them. So it was actually really depressing, and I just felt like I was posting a whole bunch of like old photos, and it was really just nostalgic because I wasn't cosplaying, and kind of depressing. And then coming into October, like I really like set a bunch of goals for myself. And I kind of had to like take it back to square one, where I like started small again. I was like, I need to think of really easy, simple cosplays that I can like pull together from my closet, you know, just to kind of like dip my toes back in the water again. And surprisingly, it worked. Like I pulled together a couple Halloween cosplays. They were pretty simple. I made sure I made, you know, 1 or 2 pieces from each one, you know, if I sourced the rest from my closet. And it kind of like reinvigorated me. And now I'm like creating again, picked up planning shoots again, especially with like the vaccine coming out. We can sort of count on, you know, people being vaccinated, people being a little safer more in the future. So I kind of have swung back into the cosplay swing of things, but I'd say between January and September, it was like, wasn't even there. Wasn't even in my life, like at all.
Well, you're optimistic and I'm a pessimistic, so it means I'm always right.
Yeah.
Eventually.
Eventually.
And so I'm now curious actually what you think, because obviously 2021 cases are now going up. deaths are going up. I mean, it's getting worse in the U.S.
Yeah.
right now as we speak. But I think it was expected that it was going to get worse before it got better, especially in the winter, because people are inside, people aren't moving around as much, and this virus, I think, does better typically in the winter than in the summer. And so I'm curious how you anticipate 2021 to be, because I have the viewpoint that it's going to be very much like 2020 was. And even in the summer, I don't think we're going to see cons coming back. And if we do, we're going to see like half capacity. We're going to see a variety of things coming into play. And so I view it as a panelist, as somebody who attends 3 or 4 cons a year, you know, and then does a lot of panels. I see it very differently than a lot of other people do. A lot of comic guests see it. A lot of cosplayers see it differently, because how am I supposed to take a photo with you or of you in certain circumstances if we have to be distanced, not to mention if we're all wearing masks, it kind of defeats the entire purpose.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious how you view it, because you're going to view it very differently than me, because for me, and I'll say this as a panelist, everybody's in the rooms wearing masks, and I take my mask off just to speak, but we're all 6 feet apart. You know, that doesn't affect the information coming into people's heads. But obviously, if you're wearing a mask and you're Vanessa or you're Aquaman, you know, it defeats somewhat of the purpose.
Yeah. I personally think that there's a good chance that we might have New York Comic Con this year, and I don't think we'll have any cons before that. And I'm pretty much staking that on the timing of the vaccine and how it's slowly becoming available to people now. However, I'm not staking my livelihood and happiness on New York Comic Con happening. I've kind of had to adjust where I'm no longer creating cosplays because this con is coming up. I'm setting my own deadlines. I'm kind of like planning my own location shoots, and I'm making them according to my schedule and not the schedule.
So you're an Instagram cosplayer. I think it's a safe way to put it. You're an Instagram cosplayer until cons come back.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. But you since we don't have the deadlines of cons anymore, I'm kind of like I'm planning group shoots.
And then it gives you probably more freedom, and it also gives you more ability to do creative things in many ways. Where, because I'm not doing panels, I'm doing a lot of this stuff. And I have a lot more ability to do creativity. If I want to do live panels, I legitimately have the capacity to do one every 2 weeks. And I can do topics that would never ever be booked on a Comic-Con show, and would be so much better if I really wanted to do it. Because when I'm my own boss, I can do things that other people that would never be booked. And so I guess my question out of that is that, do you feel that you can do certain cosplays and certain characters that you couldn't do at a Comic-Con or an anime con, or you couldn't do them to the same degree because there are limitations at conventions?
I would say I definitely, and despite having cosplayed Vanessa at New York Comic Con, I can definitely do more revealing cosplays in safer environments. I'd say there's that. But I have never really made cons like a reason to hold me back from cosplaying the characters I want to. So in that regard, not really. I think the creativity is still there. It's the motivation that affects me. And if cons used to be my motivation, those weren't there. I need to find something new. You know what I mean?
And so I'm curious, because the way I am is that eventually, and I don't know if I'm ever going to go to cons, which is a whole different discussion for a variety of reasons. I'm 28. I've been doing this for the last 10 years, presenting panels. And honestly, I'm tired of it. And I'm not really big on cons at the moment. But if I ever do go back, I'm not going to not stop doing this.
Right.
So you feel that with all the shoots you're doing, and I would imagine you're doing more, that you're going to continue to do more of that stuff along with the cons, and that this is the new norm. Where this is just, cons are going to almost be the thing that's added on versus the thing that was taken away. Because that's how I view it. And it's very different, and a lot of comic companies are also viewing with a lot of virtual streams, is that when cons come back, they're going to be the thing that's added on, not the thing that's restored. And
Yeah.
it's a very interesting way to sort of put it.
Yeah, I'm actually not really sure. I think that they offer completely different things. Like doing a location shoot allows you to kind of express your creative artistic ability, whereas a con offers you like social feedback. You know what I mean? Like people are reacting to you live. It's not something that's hidden over the internet. And I kind of think that they have two separate, I don't know. They give me two different things, whether I'm an attendee to a con myself or if I happen to like get a booth. I don't think that they can really replace each other. I think people, once the cons come back, I think that they'll still go to cons to try and look for that feeling that they used to get.
Well, I get plenty of social feedback on the internet, but
well, people are hopefully people are nicer in person.
oh no! All my friends, they give me all the social feedback I need.
Oh God.
They make sure that I'm level-headed perfectly and grounded. When I get an ounce over the line, they push me all the way back down. So, and with friends like that, I don't need enemies. But
yeah.
In all seriousness, this though, I do want to give you an opportunity to promote yourself because obviously we spoke a lot about COVID and things, and obviously things are going to be very, very interesting when cons come back. And actually, before we get to self-promotion, I'm actually curious about one more con question because do you think that cons are ever going to go back to that 40,000 mark, or do you think that they're going to be sort of curtailed in attendance-wise? Because I'm leaning towards that position where I do think that con crud is real. And I spoke to Anime Next about this, and yes, con crud is real, and I think COVID has sort of proven that, yeah, con crud is real, and then once we have a super highly infectious disease, you know, if you got 40,000 people there, even with a vaccination, and let's say we eliminate COVID, cons were never really safe. So
yeah.
what do you think is going to happen with that, and what do you think is going to be sort of the ramifications? Because New York Comic Con does over 100,000 people, and let's be realistic, when you're pumping a bunch of air into the Javits Center, it's not exactly the best conducive environment.
Yeah, I think the fans hated the crowds at New York Comic Con to begin with. And everyone's been complaining. It's too crowded. You can't move through the crowds. It takes half an hour to walk from one side to the other. But now I think people are going to say it's not safe if you continue to have those crowds, and they're going to have to be a little bit more responsible. Like they're going to have to. I don't think that their fans are going to accept it any other way.
Well, I think we need a culling. You know, it'll be a lottery system.
Yeah.
You know, people walk out into the ocean, and don't worry, it's not everybody. Yeah, it'll be half of humanity, and then everybody gets to go to the Super Bowl. That's the consolation prize. Think about it. Your commute to work gets like 10 minutes shorter. You know, you actually have a nice place to live. I think the benefits outweigh the cost. That's just me. That's just me. You know, New York Comic Con's less crowded. I'm just saying. You know, it's about time that we got on this, and God is giving us a sign.
Yep.
It's legitimately on the wall.
Yes.
So seriously, if I think it's time that we started taking the signs, and I'm an atheist, and I say that full-heartedly. So you should absolutely believe every word that I'm saying. Anyhow, now I really want to give you, before I become too controversial, I really want to give you an opportunity to promote yourself before I get you and me in trouble.
Okay. All right.
So where can people, find you on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, as well as, I think you got some merch. I know that you do some commission stuff. Do you have an Etsy shop or like a print NVY shop or whatever it's called? I'm not really knowing what these things are called for cosplayers.
Yeah.
Gumroad maybe? I don't know.
I'm in the process of kind of like pulling together a website so I can be a little more official, because I am starting to sell merch now. But you can find me on social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Vero, TikTok, pretty much everything. It's all under Alliz Cosplay, and I have links to like my store where I'm selling t-shirts, I sell prints, I sell props, and I'm taking commissions now as well. So I have a few commissions under the belt, which I have to start working on this month. And I'm actually really excited to be on the commission side now because I finally feel confident in my skills to make the work for other people. So, but if you're not interested in commissions, feel free to check me out on social media. I post lots of cool photos and probably cringy stories, but hopefully you all enjoy it.
Well, we're going to wrap up on that note, but I will say this, and I've been saying it with every interview. I said it earlier today with my guest before, and I say it again, is you have to support indie content creators, whether it's a comic writer or a cosplayer. First and foremost, if you can economically, that is probably the best way. So if somebody has merch, or they got a coffee, or they got a PayPal link, or they got something that they're selling, prints, or they're running a Kickstarter or anything like that, definitely throwing money is super important. Because that money does go to a bunch of stuff. A lot of times it goes to be pumped right back into whatever project they're doing. So that's something to pay attention to. And if you can afford it and you like what you see, then you should definitely support it economically. Now, times are tough. COVID-19 has wrecked a lot of shit. It's been a down year for people. People are in tough positions. There's the great unknown that's happening in our society. And things are very complicated. So if you can't support economically because you're taking care of your family, you're taking care of yourself, taking care of your dog, keeping the electricity on, getting food, 4 walls and a roof, please take care of yourself first and foremost. And if you're in that boat, obviously you should take the free option, which is social media. Obviously, Alliz is on Instagram. You're on TikTok, a few others. So obviously anything, if you type in Alliz Cosplay, I'm sure on Google a bunch of stuff will pop up, and you can find whatever social media floats your boat. And you don't have to follow all of them, but you should definitely be following one, especially if you can't support economically and you don't have that money to share around. Social media is free. Legitimately create an account and go follow people that you like. And if you are supporting economically and all that stuff, or you need a commission or anything, you should still be following on social media because it's free. And liking, sharing, checking something out, legitimately on Instagram, you can go every other day and legitimately hit one button is a heart. And you can pretty much do something super important that's going to take you a grand total of like 40 seconds at the most. Legitimately, it's so easy to do that. So please, everybody, go follow on social media at the minimum. And I can't stress that enough. And so that's what you should be doing. So you got 2 options for support. You should hopefully be doing both, but you should definitely be doing the social media thing at a minimum because it does make a huge difference. And I can't stress it enough for every creator out there at the moment. So that's all I have to preach. And I'm going to give you the final word.
All right. Well, I'll just say thank you for having me. I mean, I thought this was a really fun conversation. You asked a lot of questions people haven't asked me before, so it was kind of cool to talk about it. But yeah.
Well, I'm happy to have you on, and I love your cosplays, and I'm curious what you're going to do next. And we're going to leave that open-ended.
Yes. I already have it planned, so you'll see it soon.